My name is Blair, and we're starting a new series this morning. It's called Stuck in a Rut, and it's a common phrase used for a common experience that people have in their lives. In fact, it's so common, it's hard to categorize them. Let me give you some examples. So, when I was young, that's when it started. I still do it. It's a rut, okay? If I'm traveling down a road on a winter day and I see a bunch of snowdrifts on that road, I get excited. I drive my car as deep into that drift as I can. And the puff of snow that comes up over the fender, it's very satisfying. Like it's kind of a public service because the wind has to fill in that little hole before it can extend the drift anymore, and I get to have a little bit of joy in the moment, okay? So this has been going on for a while. My poor dear wife does not like this habit that I have, and if she were to see this road, immediately she would say, "Please don't drive into the drifts." And I will do that because I care about her. But if she's looking down at her phone and she does not see the road, I can get 2 or 3 drifts in before she realizes what's going on. There's like a puff of snow over the fender. It's very satisfying. And she'll realize it. She'll go, "Can you get out of the drift?" And then I'll get out of the drift. Now, to be fair, when we were dating, I was cutting back some drifts. This is before we're married. And I got us stuck. And she remembers that not so fondly. And she doesn't want to repeat that. I think what that means is that she knew exactly what she was getting into, and she still said yes, right? I'm in a rut, and I kind of really don't want it to change. In my late 20s, I felt a tug to go towards ministry, but I did not want to do that. My parents had grown up in ministry. I had seen what that was like, and I told God I would serve in ministry, but I would do it my way as a volunteer. And so I took a job that I thought had an incredible future. I had to start at the bottom and I had to work my way up. I had no problem with that. 2 years into that job, I realized that I was at the top of what I was ever going to accomplish with that job. That I had now spent 2 years doing a skill that really wasn't transferable, that really I would have to explain to somebody if I were to go and try to apply for the jobs I think I was qualified to do. And I had, in an effort to outsmart God and pick a really good opportunity, I had slotted myself into a dead end. It took 18 months from that point when I realized I was at a dead end to figure out what in the world I was going to do to change that. I was in a rut and I wanted out. In my 30s, the abuse that my wife had suffered as a child kind of exploded like a volcano in our relationship. She was seething with anger and hurt and trying to process all of that. She was in counseling, group counseling, all that kind of stuff, and she developed a deep dislike of men, and I did not get a pass. It didn't matter what I did, didn't do, tried not to do. It was not good. I suppose things could have gotten worse, but they were pretty bad. And this went on for a while. And I remember around the 2-year mark that I thought to myself, I wonder if this is going to be the way it is for the rest of our lives. Like where she barely tolerates me, doesn't like me, and there's nothing that I can do to change this. We were in a rut. Now, all of those are different kinds of ruts. They have different kinds of feelings, different levels of importance, but that's the problem. It doesn't matter. If it's a small rut for you, it still got you in a place that's got your attention, got your focus, it's holding you. And so I don't know if you're in one now. I don't know what you're going to face in the future. So here's what the plan is. What we're going to do over the next few weeks is we're going to grab some common areas in life that people have experienced ruts. And we're going to say, okay, these happen in this area of life, and we're going to give you some truths that go with that I think could help if you were in that area of life. But here's what you need to understand. The ideas, the principles, the truths, they're transferable. You could have a different rut that's completely unrelated, and you're going to be able to use and apply that truth to somewhere else. You're going to have to do a little more work to do it, but it's going to be available for you to do that. So that's what we're going to try to do as we address these different places where we end up stuck. All right? So I want to take you to the scriptures. I want to start in John 5, where Jesus runs into somebody who is stuck in a rut. The scriptures record that he shows up in Jerusalem for a festival. We don't know which festival he's at. And he goes to the pools of Bethesda. Now, I need to tell you what this looks like, because in your mind, you think of pool, and most of us go to a backyard or to a school, that sort of thing. This is a big complex. We've got a rendering of what it might have looked like in the day, and several pools. One of them was 58 yards long, 46 yards wide, and 25 yards deep. If you have a pool that's got 6 to 8 foot deep end, child's play. 75 feet down, you better not swim like a rock. Right? That's not going to go well for you. The water was not all the way to the top. If you slipped off the side and decided to fall in, you would go 20 feet before you would hit that water. They actually had stairs built in on the inside where you would walk down to get to the water. These are a big, big complex where people, this is a community gathering place where lots of stuff is going on. Okay? So you got to get that picture in your head. And this is what Jesus finds there. This is verse 3 of John chapter 5. Here at this complex, a great number of disabled people used to lie. The blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. They were there because they believed if they got into that water in very specific times, that they could be healed. And so they congregated, hoping for this moment where if they got into the water, their lives would be changed. Okay? That's what's going on here. Now, we're not going to get into that specific event. We don't have time for that. I want to get to the rut, which is verse 5, and you'll notice there's no verse 4. It's not in all the old manuscripts, so they just took it out. So don't have time for that either, but here it is. Verse 5, the rut. One of these paralyzed people who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. A lot is left out. Was he born this way? Was he injured as a teenager? How many years of the 38 has he been sitting on the edge of that pool hoping that maybe his life could change and he could be healed? We don't know any of that. What we do know is that he has been this way for a long period of time. And this is what happens. This is what Jesus says in verse 6. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" I have visited a lot of people in the hospital over the years. I promise you, I have never led with that line. Hey, how's it going? You want to get well? In fact, I can't even think of a time where I've said it in a long conversation. Like, it's not something that came up. Why? Because shouldn't the assumption be that it's somebody who's not well would want to get well? What if that's not the case? What if it's possible that this question isn't insensitive at all? That instead, what it does is it gets to the very heart of some of the ruts that we face in life. Look, this is hard for me to wrap my mind around, but I'm gonna give you an example that's the standard. It's not the exception, it's the standard. This is what normally happens. If you find a woman who's being abused in a home, hit, bruised, broken bones, bloody, like have black eyes, all of that, more often than not, she will defend that guy. If I wouldn't have done X, then he wouldn't have had to do that to me. And more often than not, she will return to that home over and over and over again, allowing for the abuse to continue. Can you hear Jesus gently looking in the eyes of a woman like that and saying, do you want this to end? It's that kind of question. And most of us would think, you know what? Jesus wouldn't have to ask me that kind of question. I would never let some sort of unhealthy situation like that happen. No, that's an extreme. But I'm telling you right now, we allow all kinds of unhealthy kind of interactions in the relationships in our lives. We do it all the time. And we tolerate it. Like it's okay. Have you ever had the same argument with somebody so many times that you know exactly what they're going to say, you know how it's going to end, and you know it's not going to get resolved? But you do it anyway. Yeah. You know that happens. How many times have you had a thought about the other person that you're in a relationship with that you know if you said that out loud, you'd be in serious trouble, so you just think it? And you think it a lot. And it consumes your thoughts about that other person. It's terribly unhealthy. But these are things that we do on a regular basis. We have these habits that we get into. We build ruts. We build ruts. Do you know what a rut is? I have a picture of a deer rut. It looks like somebody actually built this trail. They didn't. This is all just deer going down the same place day after day, day after day, day after day, and they create a rut. That's what it is for us. We create these relational habits with each other where we travel the same path over and over and over again, and pretty soon it just becomes the place we go. The place we go in our head, the arguments that we have, the conversations. We do this with unhealthy communication styles. Like, it's not helpful the way that you're communicating with each other, but it's the path that you've traveled so often that it just comes into the relationship and dominates. And we create these relational ruts. So that's the specific area that I want to talk about, and we're going to get to that. But we found a song that does a really good job of highlighting some of the stuff that goes on inside a relationship where a rut gets formed. You're going to listen for some of the choices that they're making. Listen for some of the things that they're doing. It's all in the song there. They don't call it a rut. They call it a storm, but it's the same thing.
Somebody broke me once. Love was a currency, a shimmering balance act. I think that I laughed at that. And I saw your face and hands, colored in sun, and then I think I understand. Will I understand Will we fight, stay up late? In my dreams, I'm to blame. Different sides of the bed. Roll your eyes, shake my head. Now we're stuck in a storm we were born to ignore. And all I got is a chance to just sit.
I'm in love and you've got me run away.
You steal the air out of my lungs, you make me feel it. I pray for everything we lost, buy back the secrets. Your hand forever's all I want, don't take the money. Don't take the money. I slept on my own those nights, was still in my parents' house. Cut off my t-shirt sleeves and claim a new continent. Till I saw your face and hands covered in sun, and then I think I understand. Will I understand? Will we fight, stay up late? In my dreams, I'm to blame. Different sides of the bed. Roll your eyes, shake my head. Now we're stuck in a storm we were born to ignore. And all I got is a chance to just sit.
I'm in love and you've got me run away.
You steal the air out of my lungs, you make me feel it. I pray for everything we lost, buy back the secrets. Your hand forever's all I want, don't take the money. Don't take the
I'm
money.
in love and you've got me run away.
You steal the air out of my lungs, you make me feel it. I pray for everything we lost, buy back the secrets. Your hand forever's all I want, don't take the money. Don't take the money. When you're looking at your shadow, you're standing on the edge of yourself, and you're praying in the darkness, just don't take the money. Dreaming of an easy, waking up without weight now, and you're looking at the heartless, just don't take the money. You steal the air out of my lungs, you make me feel it. I pray for everything we lost, buy back the secrets. Your hand forever's all I want, don't take the money. Don't take the money.
I'm in love and you've got me run away.
You steal the air out of my lungs, you make me feel it. I pray for everything we lost, buy back the secret. Your hand forever's all I want, don't take the money. Don't take the money. Just 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 don't take the money.
Don't take the money.
Just don't take the money.
They'd like to recover what they lost. I don't know if you heard that part. They had these deep secrets that they once shared, and they'd like to recover it, but it looks like the thing could be headed for a divorce. Don't take the money. I'd rather that we found a way. And yet they have all of these habits that they've stacked up that causes problems. You know what's kind of odd? There are some time frames in marriage that have become common for divorces to happen. The most popular one is years 7 and 8. Years 7 and 8 see the most divorces out of all the other years. Then there's one at 16, 17, and then there's a grouping around 25 to 27 where there's a spike. And I think what happens in these moments is that you create ruts over a period of time, and you get to a place where you think, I'm not sure this is ever going to change, and you give up on the relationship. And the sad part is, if you would have worked through it, if you would have done the hard work, the thing that would have been on the other side of that is so good, so valuable, that it would have been worth the fight to do that. But people give up. They just go to different sides of the bed. They just have the same arguments. They just do the same things. And what I want to do this morning is I want to give you a couple areas that I think frequently lead to these kind of ruts causing real problems in our lives. And I don't think they're just in marriages. I think these happen in relationships, period. If you get into a habit where you're following these kind of things, you'll cause some real problems. So I want to talk about the issue, and then I want to suggest to you some solutions that Jesus brings up with this paralyzed guy. all right? So the first thing I want to talk about is that sometimes what creates ruts is that we have emotional responses that are habit, not choice. It's an emotional response that's a habit. Like, I just automatically go there. Something comes up, I get angry, I respond with anger. And you'll hear this. You'll hear this often in relationships get expressed this way. People will say, I didn't want to make them feel that way. Or they'll say, I didn't want to feel that way, but I did, so I have to respond to it. And I think sometimes they're telling the truth. They don't want to necessarily feel that way. But here's what I can tell you for sure. They never put up any roadblocks to stop it either. They never threw up something that said, okay, I've got to find a way to slow this emotional response down, because if I don't, the only thing we're going to talk about is the emotions that are in the room, which is what happens when you have fights that are based on emotion. Everybody talks about their emotion. You run around in circles, but you've never even got to the core root of the problem. Why? Because it's all up here, where all the heat, all the energy, all the fired upness stuff is. I think there's lots of ways that this happens. You know, oddly enough, one of the ways is for there to be no emotions. That's an emotional response. When you go dead fish on somebody, like you're there, but there's a dead look in your eye and you don't respond to anything that they say, that's an emotional choice that you just introduced into the relationship. There's no coming to any solution with a dead fish. There's no coming to any solution, by the way, they have found, if you allow emotional discharge to be the primary way that you interact with each other when it comes to arguments. They don't get solved. If your blood pressure goes up, the chances of you finding a solution to that issue are about zero. Doesn't happen. James would recommend this. This is James 1:19. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. The pattern is quick, slow. Quick, slow. I'm quick to find out what I don't understand about what's happening with this situation. I listen. Listen, if you're going dead fish, you're not even doing that. You're choosing not to listen to the other person to gather information. You've got to get to the root of the issue. See, emotions aren't wrong. You're going to have them. God created them. They're a positive thing in your life. But when they lead and when they set the pace for the conversation, they're out of bounds. You have to make a decision, a conscious decision of how you're going to deal with this thing that's come between us. And it's going to have some logic in there. You're going to have to say, do I want this to cause problems for a long period of time? If so, then I'll just respond emotionally. If not, I have to do something different. It's kind of interesting. When Jesus asked the paralyzed guy, do you want to get well? He never answered the question. What he did say was that my friends have not actually gotten me into the water in time to be healed. My friends are failing me. My friends have let me down. It was all them, nothing with him. And can I tell you, what happens often when I meet with a couple or a relationship in conflict, what is often the case is there's one or both people are sitting in that room thinking they need to do all the changing. They need to do all the changing. And they're looking at each other. What God's doing in relationships is He's finding a way to take two people and to do something great in that combination. In marriage, He's intending to actually build unity. In order for there to be unity, it's two people working together going in the same direction. I'll tell you what, I do ask that question, do you want to get well? It's the one place I ask that question. When I have a couple sitting before me who are in a conflict, I will ask them directly, do the two of you want to see this get better? And I've had people answer me honestly and say, I don't like this person, I don't think I do. And I can tell you that relationship did not get healed. Because it requires two people who take their responsibility for the relationship and both employ quick, slow, slow. Both quick to listen. Sometimes you feel hurt and offended so quickly that you don't stop to ask if that was the intention of the other person. You don't, that quick to listen doesn't happen. And so the relationship creates these pathways that you go down over and over again, and you have these emotional responses that you have with each other, and you even know the outcomes as the fight gets started. And the fair question is, do you want to get well? Because you're going to have to start putting up some roadblocks to those common, normal responses that you've had, or you're going to end up in the same place. Second thing that happens is sometimes we create ruts when we violate the sanctity of respect in a relationship. We do this in a couple ways, and it's easy to do, I know. I just did it this week, all right? Sometimes you know what will irritate the other person, and you do it anyway. That's what I did. We were having a discussion. I thought I pretty much understood the whole discussion as it was going on, and she wanted some sort of feedback. I didn't feel like that needed to happen because I knew exactly what she wanted me to do. We're good. And so I ignored her. Oh, she's laughing. She wasn't laughing then. Like, in the moment, there was no chuckle. Here's what she said instead. What you're doing is so disrespectful. And 2 minutes later, I apologized. Because there's no way we can allow that in the relationship and hope to have something great over a long period of time. It undermines unity. And yet, we do these things that we know the other person doesn't like. And we think, they love us. They should just be okay with it. You know the other thing that we do? We don't practice quick, slow, or quick, slow with each other on stupid minor stuff. And we repeat that over and over and over again, and we turn it into a respect problem. It wasn't. It was never about respect. It was the fact that you don't know how to put the toilet paper roll on correctly, right? And some of you have had this discussion. I think it's insane. I don't care. Do whatever you want. But people get into arguments about this kind of stuff. And what happens is they repeat it and they get under each other's skin enough that eventually the roll on the toilet paper becomes an image of respect for somebody, and now you're having a completely different discussion. Instead of hearing each other out and solving some common stuff that could just be easily removed from the relationship, we make it even worse. And we turn it into a place where that person feels like, you're doing this out of spite. I don't think you respect me. And they withdraw from the relationship, and you withdraw from the relationship, and now you have a serious problem. There's a reason Jesus asked the paralyzed guy, do you want to get well? Because he was about to ask him to do something that was going to be a huge risk. The guy could actually look like a fool by following Jesus' command. Jesus says to him in verse 8, get up. Get up. Like I've never thought of that. Right? Except he's standing before somebody. He's lying before somebody who he knows has the chops. And he goes, listen, I asked you if you wanted to get well because I'm capable of helping you, but you're actually going to have to do something. You're going to have to take a different path. Will you get up? Do you know what that looks like in a relationship when it comes to respect? You know the different path that you have to take? I talked earlier about how sometimes we have these negative thoughts in our head that just swim. They are deadly for the relationship. They undercut it. They cause you to disrespect the other person. And there is one way, one known way to recover that. It's hard. It's a change of direction. It's your get up moment. You could look like a fool doing it. But it is the only solution. 40 years of marriage research on this. This is the one thing they would recommend to people who are having respect issues inside the relationship. Here it is. You choose to find a characteristic or a trait or something about that person that you find valuable and important and worthwhile, and you rest your mind on that. That's what you think about. When you think of them, that's what you think. Even better is you go and tell them once a day what that great thing is that you admire them for. By the way, if you do this for a week and you're like, it didn't work. No. The research suggests this takes about 3 months of consistent, positive thinking to turn your heart towards that person. So if you dig a deep hole, you're going to have to dig your way out of it over time. Do you want to get well? What you choose to rest your mind on matters. You know, I've talked to some people who tell me that they don't think people can change, which is them answering the question, do you want to get help? The answer is no. Because it's not possible. I am who I am. You're just going to have to deal with it. If you know anything about Jesus, he is a change agent. He did not come to leave people where they were at. But so many times, you're going to have to be part of it. You're going to have to get up. You're going to have to rest your mind in a different place. And if you don't, you can blame everybody else. But your thoughts will undermine your relationship if you allow them to. And your thoughts will support it if you place them there. The question is, will you get up? Now, this is not the only thing that Jesus said to the man. The second thing he said, it baffled me. He said, get up, take your mat and walk. The walking part made sense to me. The take your mat part, why? Why just not get out of there? Go away, be gone. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, I read everything I could to try to figure out why in the world Jesus would ask this guy to take the mat. This is, I think, the best explanation that I've seen that makes a ton of sense. It's his only possession in the world. If he leaves that there, when he gets tired at night, where do you think he'll go to rest? He'll go back to that mat. If he goes back to that mat, is there any chance that he'll go back to his other habits too? You know why we create ruts? We are creatures of habit. Think of a store that you like going to. Any store in your mind, think of a store that you like going to. Do you park in the same part of the parking lot outside that store every time you go there? Do you sit in the same seat in your house when you go to sit down somewhere? Did anybody ever assign seats at the table where you eat? But I bet you sit in the same place all the time. We're creatures of habit. And I think Jesus knew that if this guy's mat stayed where it had always been, and he returned to what he had always done, that it would be a short step back into all of those habits. So here's what I'm going to suggest. We are a habit-building creature. This is what we do. But what if we could use that for our benefit? What if we could use that to create really valuable things with the people that we have relationships with? What if you built rituals around stuff that had meaning and mattered to you and the people that you cared for? These rituals could be small things. This could be how you greet each other when you come home. There is a certain way that my wife expects to be greeted. I know because I've asked. I found out what's important to her. And so when I go home, I seek her out like a little dart. And I do the little ritual that we have because it communicates to her that you're really valuable to me. And we have this thing between us that nobody else has. And you build these things. You build these rituals for how you're going to go vacation. You build them maybe for a date night. You build all kinds of things so that you're building a life together that has repeatable things that you do that have meaning and purpose to the relationship that you both value. It's fun to figure this stuff out where you're actually having a conversation about how to build something of value together, not just have arguments about where you disagree. And you start creating pathways that you travel over and over and over again in a positive way. And you start to bind each other's hearts together. You take your mat and you go somewhere else. I'm not going to keep doing the same stuff that we've done. We're going to go to a different place, create a different thing for our relationship, and it's going to have meaning and purpose to us. There are so many ways that you can do that. It's countless. By the way, dads, you could do this with your kids. You could do this with people that you work with, where you're building meaning and purpose through rituals that have value to both of you. In order to do that, you actually have to hear them out. You have to know what's important to them. You have to listen, and then you have to build it together. This is the exciting part of the relationship. My wife and I have some big goals that we're pursuing right now together. They're really binding. Like, there's purpose behind them, and we know what's going on, and we're on that journey together to do that sort of thing. There is value in the build and not just the maintain. You've got to maintain the relationship. But God wants you to build something great. This is one of the ways to do that. But if you leave the mat in the same place, I'm telling you right now, we are creatures of habit. You will do the same thing over and over and over again, whether it's good for the relationship or not. Get up, take your mat, make a choice. But you've got to answer the question, the big one. Do you want to get well? Because Jesus stands ready to offer his help in your relationship, to guide you forward. But he's not going to assume that you want to be better. He's going to let you reveal by your choices whether you are or not. Will you put up quick, slow as a roadblock in your relationship? Will you start doing things that value each other and show each other respect? Will you start fixing the stuff that's going on in your mind, in your relationships with this other person? Will you start building the kind of rituals that add meaning and purpose to your life? These are things that Jesus will help you do, but you get to make the choice. Let me pray with you. God, these ruts that happen in our lives, they're just so natural. We're creatures of habit. We do the same things over and over again, sometimes not really evaluating, is this beneficial or not? Sometimes we do know. Like somebody in our lives that we've been in relationship with has looked us in the eye and said, that does not help me. God, I ask you would give us the courage to find a way to put up a roadblock to that thing that's not helpful and to start taking a different path. Help us slow down how quick we go with an emotional response. God, will you encourage the kind of thinking that binds us together? Our minds are powerful things, and what we feed it matters. God, may we rest our minds on the good. Jesus, we ask for your Spirit to come upon each one of us and give us creative thoughts and ideas for building something of value with each other, where we're actually putting meaning and purpose in our lives, not just getting through our day, not just checking off the boxes. May our relationships become unstuck because of you. In Jesus' name, amen.